we had started buying records a little bit, and I tried to scratch, and it sounded like a scratch.
Yeah.
And, you know, shortly after that, there's, you know, I want to say a day when Dave and his friends also come home. We're in the family basement, and I'm scratching, and they're, you know, Dave's just like, yo, what's going on here? Like this. And he just kind of had the vision, like, okay, this will be your path. Like, you're going to be a DJ.
Well,
Whereas I was just,
we were watching Wild Style
Yeah.
at the time, and there was all the little kids rapping.
yeah.
So
Double
then I had
Trouble
a
and all
vision,
that.
like, what if it's like a like super nerdy French white kid from Canada,
Yep.
but he becomes like the best.
Yeah.
I just literally would like, that'd be so crazy. You know,
And like
it'd
Dave
be like people would freak out, you
Right.
know, because I saw what he looked like. Like we should probably cut to a photo of what he looks like back then. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, imagine if this kid beat everybody. And I was like, that would have been crazy in Wild Style. So it would, or in Style Wars, because we were watching all those, you know,
Yeah.
after school in the basement
Yeah.
with my friends on VHS. So I kind of had the vision, and I was like, well, what you're doing on mom and dad's record player already sounds like a scratch.
Right.
So if you really went in, and then that's how it started.
Yeah.
You know.
And then, you know, like Dave mentioned, he was like, you know, going out bombing a little bit. So he had a tag, his friends had a tag. So again, I'm the little brother who's like, I want a tag. So I'm just, you know, coming up with little names, doodling on paper. And A-Trak was just like one of those names that just happened to be when I started to scratch. So then, you know, when suddenly I'm a DJ, I was like, well, I guess I have a name already. It's A-Trak. And, you know, so it all came from that, like Dave said, like the entry point, the sort of the entryway into hip hop culture.
One thing that was cool about Montreal is that we had a few bombers from Paris and from France that came, and that were using those block letters and like the fat caps and stuff, like the real French style from the 90s.
Yeah.
And they were doing their thing. And so I was exposed to that. And we went to like a French lycée from France, and there was a couple of French kids there. They were like writing graffiti and doing like the French, just like the French scripts, you know, from the 90s and stuff. Like, and so that was like one thing we were exposed to. And then like all the Montreal graffiti writers that like I admired and I loved. And I, you know, it's dope because I'm still friends with them and shit. Like we still talk all the time, you know.
Yeah. You should shout out a couple of Montreal writers.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I used to, you know, do their tags on my binders at school and
Right.
stuff. And then we became buddies, but they knew us. Then it was like, oh, the kid who makes beats. Oh, the kid who scratches.
Right.
And then, oh, you guys are into graffiti too. Yeah. But yeah, like I really love Montreal's graffiti history from the 90s when I was coming up, because it was still fairly new. And yeah, you had those French people that were coming in. There's a guy called Psych.
Right.
I'm still homies with him on Instagram, and we became buddies and stuff. And I remember him when I was a teenager, and he destroyed the whole city. Like I think got deported, like put in jail, got deported, like some crazy stories. But you know, he had that like those French, you know, sort of black and white or chrome and with the block outlines and stuff, just so elegant. And you know, it's a city where people speak French, so even those names ring different, or like the crew initials would be like a French expression, you know. So we were really in between the two languages. And then you had other people, like the people I was really close to, which is like JKR and Mank and Stack and all those guys like that are still really good buddies of mine to this day. Stack is like I speak to him every week and stuff. And those guys had the best style, in my opinion. And eventually in Montreal, there was a graffiti convention called Under Pressure.
Yeah.
I feel like it still exists, or at least it's still like it was a big thing for a long time. And I was like, for a few years, I was involved in organizing it.
It's my first time scratching in front of
in
anyone.
Public, yeah.
In front of anyone.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys do this, but we should probably cut into it.
Yeah, I'll give you the footage.
So the first time Alain ever scratched in public was at a graffiti convention that I was involved in. So shout to C's and Flo and all those guys. They organized this graffiti convention, and Alain, how old were you? Like 12?
14,
you think?
Yeah.
But there's an insane clip of him scratching.
I looked 11, but I was 14.
You looked like 3.
Yeah.
And then so that was at a graffiti thing. So it was always like the baseline for us, you know. And Yeah. The French American thing was interesting.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say there's something to be said about like Montreal being at a very unique position
Yeah.
where, you know, and this could be said about the graffiti styles that you would see in the city. It could be said about the type of hip hop that was being made musically, types of beats, in the sense that we're right next to the US. You know, the border is less than an hour away. So there's like an East Coast influence, a little bit of a Midwest influence.
Really?
But I guess, yeah, I mean, from, you know, if there's writers coming in from Toronto, they're like right next to Detroit and Chicago.
Drink something, dude.
But I'm good. But
yeah, I guess. I mean, the
But
Toronto
definitely a
style is
European-
really different.
yeah,
The
but a
Vancouver
European-
style was really different. There's a couple of cats in Toronto that, I mean, because they all did Under Pressure, and I became friends with all of them.
Exactly.
But the styles were really, really different.
Yeah,
Montreal was almost like it's a big skate element and a big we were almost ahead of the curve on, like, you know, Montreal really has a true punk, like crust punk thing.
yeah,
And the kind of crust punk graffiti was a thing there even
Yeah.
when I was a teenager, and there's still, you know, that legacy is there. So like a lot of the crust punk styles that have become a thing now, which I also adore, like they were a thing when we were kids.
yeah.
You know, stuff that like you don't even know if this person knows graffiti or not. You're just like, okay, you're using spray paint to paint like weird shit.
Right.
But like, is this just because you're an outsider artist, or you?
Or is this tagging?
Yeah, like what is
Where
this
does
to
it
you?
fall? Yeah.
Like there's a lot of that. There was a
Yeah.
lot of that early on. Even back then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
And- But then also like
And they were punks. Like there were people with combat boots and weirdo mohawks and shit. Dope.
But then the music venues, like there'd be a lot of, you know, independent hip hop events at punk venues.
At punk venues, yeah.
You know,
Well,
because
I guess here
it's
too,
that
though.
DIY thing.
But here too, though.
Sure,
back in
yeah,
those days.
but not in every city. So that was present, and then, you know, big influence from Europe on the graph side. They've talked about
on the music side, the DJ side.
Exactly. We were getting, you know, we'd go to a record store and get imports from the UK or from France, more so than someone growing up in an American city.
Or we'd have DJs,
Yeah.
techno DJs or house DJs coming from Europe, and I
Yep.
think that brought a lot. You know what I mean?
Jungle,
it was,
all of that. It
Yeah,
was-
jungle, drum and bass.
Yep.
Early. So we were fortunate, and then our family living in Queens, we'd come and spend the summers in Queens on my mom's side of the family. And so it was funny because like my view of, again, this is me at 14, 15, you know, sort of my view of New York graffiti was like sort of very skewed towards, you know, whoever was popping on Queens Boulevard.
Right.
Rest in peace to Vamp. He was my favorite, you know, KRT, WRB. Like I used to, you know, look up to these cats. I didn't know them until Instagram. Then I became friends with them on Instagram. But I used to just, you know, we just like copy their tag on our binders. It's cool because we love them, you know. So yeah, I don't think people know how deep of a role this plays for us, because it was like not only the entry point, it just stayed something we want to integrate into everything we do. And that's why, like, you know, I use a lot of like graffiti artists and post graffiti or whatever for the Duck Sauce artwork that I creative direct for you, or even, you know, on the Chromio merch, you know, it's like Ben Solomon, you know, will do like the Chromio tags on all my on my band's merch, and people that come to my shows, they don't know what that is, but like I see him wearing his style.
Or like we, you know, at the 2 Fool's Gold stores that we've had over the years, we would, you know, host art shows by Hayes or the ATrak guys, or, you know, and I think even like listening to you talk, I'm kind of picking up on this sort of through line where like there's we built a relationship with some of our OGs over time since a young age. You know, I remember us going down to New York before you moved here, I think, and going to like Bobby Doe's Footwork, and
of course
meeting Wayne, COD, and people like that.
I was with you then.
Yeah, I'm saying us meeting me and you.
Yeah, of course. Wayne,
you know?
COD is one of the first OGs we met, and
exactly
you being a DJ, you know, him being like this young prodigy DJ, everybody had heard of him, and like immediately you have respect. Like that was our whole thing, is like, if we're gonna meet our heroes, you can't be a herb. You have to have something to contribute, and something that's going to make them respect you, or at least show how thorough you are and how dedicated you are to this whole thing that we're all into. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So why meet anyone if you don't have something to bring to the table, or at least a skill to showcase? So, it's A-Trak, like the youngest world champion DJ from like snowy Montreal, Canada, who speaks English with a French accent. This is crazy, you know? And so then at least there's a mutual respect, and we can express our admiration, and they can be like, yo, I fuck with you guys. And then you build from there. But that was always really important to us, and still is.
Yeah. As much on the graph side as you know, DJs that were OGs that we met early on. Like that's just, I think that's been very important to us in our whole path. So from meeting people like Wayne, or, you know, Hayes is a big bro to Fool's Gold since day one. I mean, he literally like helped us get our first store. He just always looked out, you know. That's just something that's like a deep value to us. I think like the way that you were explaining how like graph was the entry point into hip hop, and then even in a way hip hop was the entry point into making music. There's value.
I don't make Chromeo. My band's not even. I mean, there's some hip hop elements to it, but it's funk. It's electronic.
But if you're making funk, or if I'm, you know, making house records, we approach everything with this sort of like b-boy mentality that we also got values from.
Well, what's the? I think that's the book right there. What's the book that we always reference, that you're going to be a toy for 5 years? The Art of Getting Over? Is that the one? No, the other one. No, the other one.
What, Flip the Script? No,
the one where it's, I forgot. It's Espo who said that?
Yeah, it was Espo. It's Espo's book for sure.
The one where it says, all right, the first 5 years you're going to suck. Right?
It's Espo's book. I don't remember the title, but it's definitely his.
I don't know. Yeah. Well, we could fact check that.
Yeah.
It's here anyway, somewhere. But yeah, the first 5 years, I think it's The Art of Getting Over. The first 5, is that the one?
I don't know.
The first 5 years.
I mean, the Art of Getting Over is Espo's book.
Yeah, so that's probably in there.
That's it.
Yeah, that's probably in there. Yeah, that's it.
I think that's it.
The first 5 years are going to suck. Don't get gassed. Respect your elders. Keep your head down.
Yeah.
Pay your dues. Then you start being a little nice. Don't get gassed. You know, that kind of thing. And I think that's a code of ethics that informs the way you can move. You know, stay humble. Like me, I don't care. Like, you can clown me, you can roast me. Like, look at coming, I'm wearing fucking tight jeans and man heels. You can roast me. I love it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, stay humble. Don't take yourself seriously. You know, it's that kind of skate graffiti attitude where it's okay. And like, always pay respects to the people you look up to. And like, not only your OGs, but just
not being up on the new crazy shit too.
Like,
that combination of like really, really acknowledging and understanding what the OGs paved the way for, but also like
showing
always
love to the new jacks.
Yep, always being hungry to be like, yo, have you seen this dude killing it? Like,
and always like using what we learned and what we were able to achieve to inform like another audience or another generation, to educate. You know what I mean? Like, just a lot of what we do is like, whether it's music or visual, it's transmission. You know, it's a transmission. Like, there's codes that are being passed on, and there's messages that are being passed on. And like, I think it's like, when you become funny styles when you're hogging, but like, it's just transmissions. Like,
and it's ill when you think about it, because sometimes the people receiving those codes might not even explicitly understand what they're getting or where it's from, but it still sort of lands somehow, and you're still kind of passing it along. But we do a lot of stuff even on our socials where we like explicitly, you know, talk about the people that influenced us too.
Yeah.
So it was Montreal, it was New York graffiti, it was Montreal graffiti, it was, because you're in Montreal, also European stuff.
Yeah, Paris styles.
Yeah.
People coming over.
Yeah.
And then that just led to, in a weird domino effect way, everything.
Yeah, kind of. The graffiti thing was everything. Like, it was day one, you know. That's why we still have the names, and like, we try to hint at it. But like,
the Check Your Head album cover with the Hayes hand styles, all of that. Like, we just
and, like, and skateboard videos, but like, just that set of ethics. And then the thing is too, not to cut you off, but like, at that time, that was also a key to understanding fashion.
Yeah.
which is, because Spike Jonze, Sofia Coppola, X Large, Lafayette Street,
Right.
they were all taking from that aesthetic. It was all, it was, look at the greatest example is Argue, right? Like David Sorrenti, right?
Yeah.
Like you're really at the nexus of fashion, downtown, graffiti, right? Like the SKE guys, like that shows you how in that period in time it really intermingled, right? So, and I think that having seen that one time and having seen how all these things can sort of gel together, you're inclined to keep that conversation going and to implement it. You know what I'm saying? So, and
I think there's something also about coming up in Montreal, it being a bilingual city, and this city that sort of like receives culture from America and Europe at the same time. The music scene, like as we actually got into making music, the music scene at the time especially was really broken down between like the English side and the French side of town. But because Dave made beats and because I scratched, so neither of us was like in a language per se, we kind of figured out how to move through the different sides of the city. And I think once we got comfortable with like that the little swim through, we sort of like expanded that to a lot of what we've done over time. I think some of that even boils down to like just figuring out, being comfortable with who you are, your identity, what you stand for, and learning how to sort of like bring that to different places.
We had our crew in Montreal, like the kids that we would produce for, and we had like a rap group that were the kids we went to high school with, and we had an independent hip hop label out of Montreal, and then that label had to deal with Fat Beats.
Yeah, that was before Fool's Gold.
Yeah.
It was called Audio Research.
And like, so we would have our records distributed in Fat Beats, and then we would come down and do like the Words Bobito showcase, like the cats, shout out Obscure Disorder, and obviously Nonfiction I became really close with.
But they were kind of big brothers to us too. Like
big time.
I think there's something about like throughout all these like 28 years that we've been making music, there's a couple of like
key figures.
Yeah, big bro figures to both of us.
And then now we can be that to other people.
Yeah.
Like I really think like you're a big bro to a lot of people. People call me that too.
Yeah.
And it's important, I think, for us to, if I can have the role, if I could even symbolically or whatever represent to someone what Stretch and Bob represented to me, or what Eric Hayes represented to us, or what Ill Bill Nonfiction represented to us,
Peanut Butter Wolf for me.
Peanut Butter Wolf represented to us. Like if we could symbolically represent that to other people, then that's a huge part of the goal that's been met. And then another thing I think for us that's important is, because we do have like large audiences, is to somehow bring to those audiences the things that mean the world to us. Yeah. So, I could never do this, but I try to really, my girl really, she's sick of me because the number of times I tried to show her revs, but she just, she doesn't really, she's not so interested in that. It's
important to us.
Yeah, but to me, that's like bigger than the Beatles,
right.
Or as big as, Keith Richards. He's our Keith Richards in a way, or the same, But if I can integrate some of that, to be the fact that I got like Chromeo fans wearing like shirts with like
ATrak tag on it.
Yeah, it makes me happy because one day somebody will make the connection,
right?
And at the very least, somebody will say like, "Oh, that looks cool." The same way my mom, without knowing anything about graffiti, she was like, "Yo, that's cool. That looks cool."
Right.
And then that opens you, and all you need is that one gateway drug, that one gateway moment. I think we all have that. Mm-hmm. It could be a cousin, it could be an older brother, it could be a magazine you saw, it could be a clip you saw on.
It could be one performance, one concert. You're like, what's that?
Yeah. That one moment means everything.
Yeah.
And that, again, like it's so crazy because like obviously we're older, so. With me, it'll be like, oh, it's a Delta Homo Sapien cassette cover. But that image of like, is that a bowling ball? Like, what is it? It's a helmet? And why is he doing that? And then his name's written so funny, but he's a rapper. Oh, I didn't know rappers. Oh, did he skate too? Crazy, because I like all of that. Oh, wow. I'm like that too, kind of. I could be like that. Oh, man. What do you think this means? You know, those connections still made today.
Yeah.
You know, I mean.
And there's like a lot of the stuff that we got into when we were young, we had to break a code, decode. Like when I was just starting to figure out scratching, we were both listening to this Pete Rock and CL Smooth album, The Main Ingredient. And on the album cover, there's a picture of his turntable and mixer, and all the way down to the details of like a slip mat, like a felt mat on the turntable. For us, that was the first time that we were like, oh, you can take off the rubber thing that comes.
Yes,
and you can put another thing in.
That's when we took the rubber off.
Yeah, and it's ill because those photos were taken by this guy Danny Clinch. And
that's who took.
Yeah, and like 10 years ago, I sat next to him on the plane.
Did you say something?
Yes. To even just on some gratitude shit to be able to be like, yo, a picture you took
is the reason
set me down the way of, now this is my whole, this is how I earn my living and everything.
Yeah, the Beastie Boys were that for us. I mean, they were I always say this, to me, like the Beastie Boys were the internet. Because they were like, if I could listen to a Beastie Boys album or look at like a gatefold album cover and have access to all that knowledge, like they were our internet before the internet. And then obviously like becoming friends with Mike D, and then my band opened for the Beastie Boys like years
and Money
later.
Mark, all of them.
Yeah, it's that obviously we're always here to express that gratitude. Yeah. But I hope we could be somebody's Money Mark and Mike D. I think we can. I think we say we can. I think it's like this dance between like really showing the OGs that like we love what they do. Because I know like, I don't know. I've never spoken to him about it, but Blake, when I start following him, you hear me okay? Yeah. Like when I start following him, he's probably like, what the hell is this guy? Who is this dude? Like, what? The guy with the...
Why is the guy with the band?
This guy with leather pants. Why is he following me? Like, and then like, I might just be like, yo, I love what you do. And that's enough for me. I don't need to become besties with him, but I just want to express that. And so hopefully he'll be like, oh, cool. Like it gets to him. Yeah. And for me, I'd be like, I'm a fan of everything you're doing. It's amazing. And so if I can make certain people, make sure, I think you too, make sure certain people that we look up to or that do stuff we appreciate, know that we really, really, really are grateful and fuck with them.
Yep.
That's a huge part of the to-do list, of the checklist, that's like a big thing for us.
Yeah, I mean, it costs nothing to show love. And whether it's someone who opened our curiosity when we were younger or just some new kid doing some crazy shit.
Who's out there killing it today.
If I hear a new song by, a teenage rapper, I'll just DM them like, yo, you're killing it. I love it.
Or DJs, random DJs. Yeah. We're always...
Yeah. Really, for me personally, in the DJ circuit, that mentorship role has definitely become more important in the last 10 or so years. Just kind of realizing, like thinking back at the DJs who were my idols, who I met when I was 15, who would invite me into their house just to be like, yo, come jam, rest in peace to Rock Raid or someone like that. There's definitely been, it took me years to think back and be like, this guy was not only a world champion DJ, but he had 3 kids. He was busy, like life shit. Yeah. And if I came to New York, he'd be like, and obviously this is pre-cell phones, yo, come to this subway stop. And, in the Bronx.
Went to the Bronx.
I'll meet you at the
subway. I had a neck brace.
Yep.
And we were carrying his mixer in a box. I was like, this is the end.
Yeah, but he made time and he had
This
kids.
Is the end.
Yeah.
Thank God he came and got us. He was like, I was like, this is it, bro.
Yeah. But if someone like that could make time and just kind of, I know how much that helped me believe in myself. And just keep going. So, just trying to pass that on. It costs nothing.
So, take it back to, you guys are talking about the aha moment, that moment when you realize that something exists and start going. Like, I feel like, there was no YouTube, there was like record stores, there's no Spotify with limited music.
Yeah.
There was limited music. Like in the fact, you could just only buy so many records at a time, like maybe money constraints or something. And then even graffiti, like you have wild style, but you don't have all of YouTube and all of Instagram.
Of course.
With mad writers with their own personal Instagrams that give you some sort of an inside look before you just have to imagine. Maybe you get like a page or two that you've checked out 4 billion times. But,
it's exactly what it was. Yeah.
When you're getting into it, talk about how it was, like getting into all this music and getting into graffiti when the world we're in now, it's just you have so much more access to the point where I think sometimes you can grow unappreciative of it because you're just used to it. Like a kid getting into graffiti today, for example, it's just all there. It's all there. Versus, let's say, 30 years ago.
Yeah, of course.
Even 15 years ago.
Yeah. But the kid getting into it today will have like a really interesting approach. I want to meet like a 14-year-old graffiti kid who's like really nice. Unfortunately, I don't have access to that too much in my day to day, but we have access to 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old musicians who grew up with the sensory overload of an Explore page.
And also like the non-chronological nature of an Explore page where you just kind of, everything is fed at the same time.
And it's actually fascinating.
Yeah.
Like it's actually like the way that they approach what they do, it's cool. Like it's another, I remember like we're talking about like a young musician, I don't have to name him, and I was like, "You're friends with him, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "So like what's his brain like? How does he think?" And now my brother goes, "His brain, it's like a video game console." And I'm like, I want to meet like cuz it's not, I don't want to be the old head that said like our way was better.
Yeah.
Our way was one way, and the new way is equally outlandish and can lead to really unpredictable, cool results. Yeah. And we have a lot to learn from that as well.
Shit is it's like an automated collage. It's gonna be postmodern no matter what because everything's slammed together.
Yeah, and there's So like we're very much about being grateful for how we came up and our aha moments, like you mentioned. And of course, like when someone like you does like a magazine, there's something very artisanal about it, and there's a craftsmanship involved, and there's also a physical magazine's a relic. And so it's like when I press vinyl, or when my band makes music using only analog equipment. There's a desire to make a relic. And that's fire. And actually the 14-year-old kid's going to be like, "Yo, dope, a magazine. That's so exotic and rare." Right. It's like, it's truly like a relic. So it's not even some old head shit we're doing or you're doing. It's actually creating something that's so rare and scarce and hard to come by that it has more value than ever. So I just want to make clear, like our aha moments, even though it was like a Pete Rock and CL Smooth, Danny Clinch photo or magazines, like our aha moments, if anything, they're funny because we were these kids from Canada in Montreal, French speaking parents, immigrant family. We were kind of but like coming to New York all the time. And it's like
also whatever made its way to Montreal. Sometimes it wasn't even like the
most
important thing.
Or we'd come to New York and it's like, for me, I guess because like, my mom's aunt lived in Rego Park. So that's how, to me, it was like, yeah, well, of course, Cost is the greatest writer of all time. Like, right. Revs and Cost, I see that everywhere, and I was right, but I didn't, you know what I mean? I didn't really, that's just what I saw. And I was like, no, I love these guys. This is amazing. So, but you could tell my biggest aha moment was, so obviously come down to New York, go to like a couple of pilgrimage spots. Of course, so what was it called? Like, cause I have even photos of me, like, what is it? Bomb the System or whatever. What was the spot? Scrapyard, but it had a name before that.
Yeah, I think it was Bomb the System.
Yeah. So go to Bomb the System. I have pictures of me like in front of there with like a visor and shit, like, buy magazines. And like my biggest aha moment is that like, there was a few different kinds of magazines. Of course, like I bought like every issue of On the Go. There was a magazine that was mostly New Jersey graffiti. And I want to say that was called under pressure or undercover. But that's when I first saw Cause's stuff. It was like very, very deep Orange, New Jersey things. And then there was another magazine called Crazy Kings, which I think I was like, the FC TC5 guys. And that was great because I could like see all the classic styles, like the real wild styles. And there's an issue, I actually found it on the internet the other day, where like there's a picture of all those dudes. And to me, I thought that all the graffiti writers looked like wild style. I thought they all looked like Crazy Legs.
Mm-hmm.
Like I, come from Montreal, and you watch wild style and like hip hop, you don't stop.
Mm-hmm.
And they're writing characters like Dondi, so I thought they all looked like Crazy Legs. Yes, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And then I see these guys, they look like truck drivers. It's like Scene and all
Is the ways in
Cap, all those dudes, they have mullets.
Yeah.
They have like cut off jean jackets and like tight jeans with like crazy basketball cons basketball sneakers, ill mustaches. And I was like,
you're like, is this hip hop?
Well, I just was like, that's Scene? I thought Scene looked like, I literally thought they all looked like we're going to look like Crazy Legs or like Fab Five Freddy.
Yeah.
And then these dudes were all like straight up like mullet guys, like handlebar mustaches. And that photo is unbelievable. I actually found it on the internet.
Yeah.
Cut off heavy metal t-shirts, denim patches. Their look is like 10 out of 10. It's spectacular.
Yeah.
But it's so far from what I thought it was going to be. I was just like, that really exploded my mind. And I remember looking up and being like, wait, that really has to be him. That can't be him. That's probably a typo. That probably is some other guy. That's not him. He makes all these characters. That can't be him. This guy looks like a Hell's Angel. You know what I mean? So that was like, I thought that was like one of my coolest, my head exploded. And I was like, then I love that culture even more. I love that thing even more now. And it bridged the gap too between like the rock stuff I had liked before and all the punk stuff that I had liked before. And then now I was like, okay, everything we've ever loved, is together under one roof now.
Right. Yeah, hip hop becomes this like fucking matrix that you can feed anything into.
But also it's an attitude you can export to everything else.
For sure.
So when my brother started DJing house and techno, I remember when I even told you like, yo, you should start getting into that.
Mm-hmm.
It was never a question of like changing our value system. It was more like, oh, I can take what I've always been into and just apply it to something else. It's what I did with Chromeo. It's what you did when we started an electronic music label.
Yeah.
And when you started with house and techno music,
it was still hip hop.
It was still, and
then
still
some b-boy shit.
Yeah, and then lo and behold, the biggest figures of that music end up being old school hip hop heads.
Right.
Kenny Dope,
Todd Terry,
Vega, Todd Terry, Armand Van Helden.
Exactly.
So then you think you branched out, you know what I'm saying? And then you end up being like, oh, okay, so you're just a hip hop dude who makes music at a faster tempo. Okay.
Yeah, that's the Planet of the Apes moment where you see the Statue of Liberty is like, wait, it was hip hop all along?
Or it was that attitude all along, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I think at that age, that version of myself, 16 years old, if I had met, Scene at his tattoo shop with a mullet and a handlebar mustache, I would have been like, yo, I love Black Sabbath too. You want to talk about Led Zeppelin? Physical graffiti? Yeah. I love that too, actually.
Yeah.
So it's realizing that once you have that code or that aha moment, everything you've ever loved, it all makes sense.
But also you keep that curiosity to try to figure shit out. Like when you're saying you're looking at a picture and you're like, wait, that's...
I find that photo. It's the greatest photo ever. It's Mount Rushmore, except they all look like Hell's Angels.
Yeah.
I really thought they were going to wear like Kangol.
But that curiosity stays with you, you know? And when I think of my sort of inflection point, big bang, aha moments, it was also just trying to figure out scratching it. Magazines were so important. Like there was Rap Pages magazine had a DJ issue. Those interviews with DJs talked about these new scratches that were coming out. None of the local Montreal DJs had figured out these new tricks that were starting to exist. And for me, like by reading an interview with like the beat junkies, these amazing DJs, and then running down the basement and listening to a record that had a scratch on it and playing it in slow motion, like you're trying to decode
learn
like
it,
Morse
yeah.
code or something, and you're like, oh shit, this is what they're doing. Like it's that curiosity, I think, and whatever artifact you have, you make the most out of it. You try to like squeeze the information out of it.
Yeah. The one thing where I think sometimes in our lives we maybe erred on the side of like taking ourselves a little too seriously, or something taking the craft a little too serious. And then maybe then in those moments we lost our North Star, which is always like never take yourself too seriously. And actually I don't know. Like, I don't know. I think, I look at like Kunle's shit, and I think I was reading actually just the other day, I'd pulled an old Vice magazine article from, I think, the year 2000. And it's called The Vice Guide to Graffiti. And it's a writer called Bruce LaBruce who was interviewing those guys, and Ryan McGinley took all the photos. And one thing I used to love when I discovered those cats is how they re-injected a lot of humor into that aesthetic. And it's, I was watching, the episode that like with Post. Yeah. And it's like, it's comedy hour, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I wonder, it's almost a question for you, but like from a magazine editor's perspective and putting together all this content, like, do you feel like humor and like the art of not taking oneself seriously, like, is that attitude is still there enough in a healthy way?
Like in the graffiti scene.
Yeah. Or and the people you deal with, and the approach, the worldview that people have,
Yeah, I guess it depends on the person. There's graffiti writers and skateboarders and artists. There's just, especially with graffiti, there is no one type of.
Yeah, well, of course you can have the Hell's Angels and you have the crazy legs looking at. Yeah.
But I would say yes, especially now.
People are funny.
Yeah, there's a lot of exploring going down.
Well, that whole anti-style thing is kind of funny.
It depends. I don't know enough of those guys. Some guys might be a vegan animal rights. Right. You know what I mean? I don't know. Right. You might be an animal rights vegan guy who's really barefoot, or you could be somebody who's probably is. They're probably nice too. Or you could probably be some guy who's like kind of trolling a little bit, right. And who has like what's his name? The kid from the Bay Area who did one of the Duck Sauce covers.
Oh, Greg, Greg Kuji down to the sex, Greg.
Right,
like Greg Shimada.
Right, he's got a huge sense of humor.
Yes.
Right, like when he does some like squeegee vibes. Like, I mean, I never met him. You met him, but I recommended him.
As soon as I met him, I was like, he's one of us.
Yeah, huge sense of humor. But I think that's an important thing, because like here we are talking seriously about like craft and all that, but like a large part of what we do is actually like a kind of crazy and funny.
Right.
Like I'm making like modern day versions of like Steely Dan, Rick James cameo records. Fundamentally everything you've done started by scratching our parents' vinyls. Yeah. And writing pseudonym. I'm like a 40-year-old something guy was named Dave One. Like the whole thing's a little bit ridiculous. Yeah. And I think it's crucial to remind ourselves of that. Like, because otherwise you get caught up.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a little bit of a prankster mentality that has to stay.
100%.
And we got that from the Beasties.
Yeah, but everybody, they have it. Like a lot of our favorite guys have it.
Yeah.
The whole idea.
Yeah. And that's like, even when you sort of find out that like Malcolm McLaren had that mentality too. Like there's that through line helps understand why we're drawn to certain things.
Which is interesting, because that's like a lot of the times, like I was never too much into the punk scene, and I never got into the hardcore thing, because to me, again, from an outsider looking in, it seemed pretty serious. Like the hardcore people seemed very serious. Like, nah, dude, like no one's trolling over there. I'm gonna stay with hieroglyphics. Those guys Dell's funny, or like Beastie Boys are funny, or
fucking Cool Keith,
or Cool Keith, or Kunle. His name's Earsnot. That's funnier to me than like straight edge guy, who has like a certain way of lacing up the Vans if you're sober. I always thought that was a little, but obviously that means I still have so much to learn. You know what I
it's
mean?
there too, I'm sure.
But I think humor is like, again, like I was watching the episode coming over and I was like, this is like stand-up comedy in there.
Yeah.
It's so important, right?
Yeah.
And actually to another, I mean, this is me really rambling, but like the oral tradition, like storytelling, like literally like like the art of storytelling, right? So important. What was it? Like the Revs book was like storytelling.
Right.
Like it's really like, yo, fireside chats of like the night that we, it's that's a lost art.
Crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
Like story, like the Revs book was literally like, it's story time.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
And the shit that we got into was like that too. When I got into DJ battles,
Mm-hmm.
yo, I heard that so-and-so, this so-and-so, and you know what I mean? Like,
it's kind of story time.
Yeah.
That was for me, like, Art Primo had forums.
Oh, okay.
Seattle had forums maybe 13 years ago. Maybe more, probably more. And they were really popular. There was no Instagram. There was no, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So writers around the world would go on these forums and talk. And they had forums about freights, forums about just streets, forums about racking, forums about like methods, forums like even ridiculous ones like what do you wear when you go out bombing? But
they were kind of joking, right?
No, they were like,
oh really?
Really telling you
oh, that's funny.
Okay. Some people would be trolling.
Yeah, you have to be because that sounds crazy.
And I was like a little kid, like 11 years old, and that was like the storytelling, like where
right?
I was like, how am I ever gonna meet one graffiti writer? Where would I meet a graffiti writer?
Right.
I'm not gonna meet any graffiti writer. So like, I'm just gonna read it here.
Yeah.
And I would just read it all
religiously.
day, all night, every page. Like, you know, like 300 pages deep. Be like, you know, reading, and I'm like, this is the shit. That was like the Revs book for me.
Right? Yeah, 100%. Or
random people telling their stories of like, this guy did this. I heard this. There was some ridiculous ones.
Like,
I heard this writer did this one time. I was like, what?
Of course.
This is wild.
Yeah. And that's been going on since day one.
The
lore, right? The lore, like legendary stories. You don't even really want to know what's true, what's not true. Yeah. But it's truly like art of storytelling type shit. That's why I think forever, to me at least, the greatest piece of journalism, graffiti journalism, is the Rolling Stone article from 1995 with J.A. Yeah. That's because it's story time, but it's surrealism. It's truly surrealism. It's like
myth building. Yeah.
I mean, but it's mythology.
Yeah.
And like it's of course we know everything in there is true.
Yeah.
And actually they're probably like toning down how crazy it was. Cause like back then you probably couldn't print everything. Yeah. They're probably like, I'm going to leave this part out. This is nuts. But you know, I think what you're talking about, I can relate to, and we're mentioning that too, is like that moment where your imagination just opens up, right? And you're like, I love this too much. I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
It feels crazy, right? You're just like, no, because this is too good, you know? And it makes you dream. I always say that. That's why, like, I always talk about, like, even with musicians, every time somebody tells me like, hey, do you have advice for young musicians? I always say, make sure people could dress as you for Halloween, because you want to make people dream. You know, you want to just, oh man, like you want to create a myth around a persona, right? Like, oh, this graffiti writer, oh, he also, like, he's got a collection of polo that he stole. And you mean like his bed sheets are polo? You think his towels are polo, but he also writes graffiti? What, you think so? Is that true? And his whole house is polo, but he's also like, there's a kid reading that today. And he's just like those people are superheroes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Word for word telling you when I got to meet Ghostface in person, finally being like, yo, he looks like a superhero.
Well, he is a superhero.
Yeah, he is.
He is a superhero. Yeah. But you know, when I met Wombat, I was like, she's a superhero.
Yeah.
You know, I'd never seen somebody on a bike with blonde dreadlocks with an incredible style, a great, like the attitude. I was like, larger than life, right? And those characters, cartoon characters. Yeah. You know, and I love that. And I love when people play into that. I think a lot of people do, even those who don't admit it. You know what I mean? Shout to Post, like, I'm going to dress as him for Halloween one day. And he's going to know, everybody's going to know exactly. I love that cat, man. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the homie.
I have a relationship with him on Instagram solely based on Mob Deep cuts.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I think, how we interact.
Yeah.
I loved his episode. I love these characters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how we got to that, but it's the best, right? It's just like,
it makes you dream.
It makes you dream.
Yeah.
It's corny to say, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Sure.
You probably felt that way on page, it's 2:37 a.m. You're on the 4th page of your message board. Your eyes are red.
34th page.
Your homework is way overdue. You're 11 years old. Like, all your friends are watching Pornhub. You're not even really on that yet. You're on page 37 reading about somebody on a freight yard wearing Vans, and you're just like, this is it.
You're like, oh, is it true?
Yeah.
Really?
This is the
third
life.
rail that can happen? What? We should rap, right?
Yeah.
Let's switch it. What was it like? I know you practiced a lot, scratching. You helped him. I read the story.
Oh, yeah.
You hitting the table. And
Yeah.
all this stuff. Let's talk.
What do you mean I hit the table?
When I was preparing for the DMC battle, on some Karate Kid shit, you would tell me, let's see if the needle skips, if you can still recover.
Did I really do that?
Yeah. That was like an exercise that we did. So I would run through my routine, and I wouldn't know when you would make it skip, but at one point you'd go boom, and I would have to recover.
Are you sure?
Yes.
See, this is the part where I don't care if it's true or not. The story's incredible.
No, but for sure.
Really?
On some Karate Kid shit. Like, we would run through the routine, and you'd be like, all right, grasshopper. And somewhere you'd boom. And I'd have to still kind of find the groove of the record I was supposed to be on and still fucking land the move.
Let's talk about the early beginnings of learning and discovering and, scratching in front of people when you're super young and maybe being afraid, maybe feeling nerves, or maybe not. How was all that? How was getting into
I think the nerves came later for me. I think when I was young, it was just like I just loved to scratch, and I was psyched to get to do it. I don't think I fully even realized like what was at stake. If I was on stage for the World Championships, it was just sort of like, well, I practiced a lot. So I know I can do it. So let me go up there and do it the way that I over practiced for, So yeah, in the beginning, it was that simple. It was like, well, I rehearsed 476 times. So now time to execute.
It's some end goal for us was just to meet our idols.
Yeah.
And to earn their respect. Like, that's it.
And just to sort of like execute this thing that we put together in a way that we were proud of. Like, all right, I think this is the best routine I can make. I practiced the hell out of it, and forward and backward and upside down. So let me just go and represent. Like, that was such a big word in the 90s. You got to represent.
Well, it's all you can control, isn't it?
Exactly.
You can only control that bit.
Yeah.
Can't really control how it's going to go down.
Yeah.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but then as you grew as a DJ, you understood, and this is still, I think, a challenge, is to like read the audience and decode what it is that they want. And I think that's like the massive limitation of being a scratch DJ, is that you're executing a routine, but you're not taking the crowd on a journey for 3 hours, and you're not reading them and decoding them.
In those battles initially, for sure.
Yeah.
It's an exhibition.
It's an exhibition, right?
Yeah.
But then it goes.
It's like an Olympic routine. Here's I'm going to do my triple flip, and hopefully I land it.
But it goes deeper when you're DJing and playing for a crowd, and you're trying to decode what they love, and you want to give them the time of their lives, because they've saved up all week to come to whatever you're playing at, right?
And
so you owe them something,
for sure. And that quest to figure out how to like give people the perfect soundtrack to a night, it never ends. That's why I'm going to be DJing since till I'm old and gray. Is like, you never fully master the thing. There's always something else.
Always something. Like we play now together. We never really DJ'd much together, but now we really have an outfit that's dedicated to Unite DJing together. And we're thrown into situations that are not sort of where I normally DJ or play or whatever, and where you normally DJ. And we show up, Ibiza 2 a.m. and we're like, all right, what are these guys wearing? What sneakers is it? What do you think they like? This is what they like? Nah, I think we can play this. What are we going? What are we doing with this? And you're just reading. You're decoding. Same way, like when you're a kid and you see this kid on the bus, and you're like, I wonder what kind of music he listens to. And you're trying to figure out by the hoodie and like, trying
the
to
logo on the hat.
Yeah, the logo. Okay.
Maybe like Cypress Hill.
Same deal. A lot of it, I think, is that. And again,
Yeah.
going back to the idea of transmission.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I have to dip.
Yeah.
But you guys want to keep talking?
Nah, we can. Whatever you want.
Yeah, keep talking a little bit. Is
Okay.
it bad if I have to go?
No.
All right, cool. You can cut, right?
Yeah.